we practiced that. How lucky are we to have Connie Britton with us? Connie, has anyone said clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose yet?
Not yet.
First one.
But the day is young.
All right. So, Connie, first of all, thank you so much for being here with us. We're so excited to kick it off with you.
I've been trying to come for so long.
I know. I've asked her for maybe 4 years straight now, and she finally said yes.
Yeah.
So, tell us how you got your start in this business. What made you go into this crazy acting career?
Well, I always loved acting when I was a kid, and I was writing plays and doing all kinds of, dressing up and doing plays in my, parents' basement and in our basement. And then I started doing plays in high school, and then in college. But, it wasn't something I really considered to be a profession, like that a person could actually do. That seemed like that was somebody else. That was a dream that was beyond reach.
Okay.
And when I was in college, that was sort of the first time that I really started to learn about a bigger world and learn, and I, was really educated about things that were happening in the world, and had this, I remember having this kind of crisis moment of how do we help those in need? How do we help the voiceless? And I remember calling my dad and being like, wait, what are we supposed to do? I was so sort of naive at that time, but it was a very true calling for me. And then I actually was a summer intern on a play that Ed Asner was in, and I noticed while he was, at every spare moment that he had, he was doing some kind of charitable work, or in some way he was using his voice for greater good. And I thought, this is it. I could actually try to do the thing that I love, the thing that I feel like I might have a talent in, and then ultimately parlay that into a way to have a little bit more power to do good in the world. And so that really was my ulterior motive, and I think maybe gave me the strength and conviction to try to do this crazy, this crazy dream of being an actor. And now I just consider every opportunity that I have to do something outside of myself and something that may have a little bit of impact in the world. I just consider that a great gift.
So you started in a basement.
Right.
And then you ended up where you are today. So
most good ideas start in a basement.
In a dark basement.
Yeah.
Not dark, maybe well lit.
It wasn't that dark.
Sorry.
Let's not go dark.
So what project changed the kind of trajectory of your career and took you from the basement to where you are today?
Well, there were lots of things that took me from the basement to where I am today, but I did have sort of that special big break moment, which was I did a little teeny tiny movie that I didn't get paid for, and we shot it on weekends, and it was the guy who was shooting the movie kind of did it whenever he had spare film stock, and it ended up going to the Sundance Film Festival, and then it ended up winning the Sundance Film Festival Grand Jury Prize. It was a movie called The Brothers McMullen. And that was my big break. I got it out of Backstage, for any of you who know what Backstage is. And that's another thing, by the way, if you think, oh, it's hopeless to ever try to, have anything happen when you go on all those cattle call auditions, you never know. So yeah, that's how it
started.
Yeah.
So you've been on so many shows, a lot of them that are cult favorites. I'm going to name a few of them.
Okay.
And then if you can just tell us, what did you learn from them, or some interesting fact that you got out of these shows?
Okay, great.
All right, let's start with Spin City.
Spin City.
Who watched that?
Spin City shot in New York, which was such a really amazing thing. It also starred Michael J. Fox, and that was my first series regular role on a TV series. And that was that was kind of my learning place. I learned so much from the incredible people in that cast, and I grew up a lot on that set.
Okay, 24.
24.
Who watched 24?
I remember in the wardrobe fitting that I had, the woman was like, you're going to want to wear comfortable shoes because you're basically just going to be running for your life. That was in the wardrobe fitting before we had shot even a scene of the movie, of the show.
Amazing. All right, Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. I'd done the movie of Friday Night Lights where I basically ended up on the cutting room floor, and when I watched the movie, I thought that they had made my character mute. And so then when they came to me and said, we're going to make a TV show, why don't you do that part in the TV show? I was like, why would I do that? But we had a lot of conversations about it, and we saw Pete Berg, who created the show, and Jason Katims, who came along later. We saw it as a great opportunity to give the women of that community a voice, which of course they have, and so that was how that evolved.
American Horror Story.
American Horror Story. Well, that was sort of post Friday Night Lights. I was like, what do I do now? I've just played this, maybe my favorite character ever. Where do you go from there? And then Ryan Murphy came along and he said, and he had just done Glee, and he said, I'm doing this this show, this like horror show, and I don't like horror. And he said, but he sat me down and he said, you will be doing the exact opposite in every way of what you've been doing for the last 5 years. And that's how he hooked me. So I faced my fears and got to work with the great Ryan Murphy on the first season of American Horror Story.
Amazing. Nashville.
Nashville was another, for me, I'm so fortunate to have the opportunities in the career that I've had, and for me, a big part of that is making sure that I'm always challenging myself and feeling like I'm doing something that feels a little bit outside my comfort zone. So Nashville was a big one because it came along and it's like, and now you're going to sing, and I'm like, wow, I really don't know how to do that, but what a great opportunity to try in front of a lot of people. So I did that, but it was a really incredible experience.
And finally, Dirty John.
Dirty John. Dirty Dawn, obviously that was such a fascinating story, and so interesting to use podcast as a way to access great storytelling. But for me, it was really, to me, it's really a woman's story because I actually recognize, even though a lot of people get mad at the woman that I played, Deborah, and the way that she handled that, but I actually really recognized a lot of the qualities that we as women are sometimes saddled with in terms of our own self-value and the way we think of ourselves and what we deserve and what we are supposed to do in relationship to men in our lives. So for me, it was really a study of that and a fascinating experience.
Great. So this room is filled with lots of content creators, and you just signed a development deal with Amazon.
Yeah.
So tell us what kind of stories we can look forward to seeing through that.
Well, I'm so excited to have this opportunity because I've really learned over the years that I love to be at the very beginning of a project being born and being created and then its evolution. And so my hope with the Amazon deal is certainly women-driven storytelling. But for me, what's even more important and specific is to make sure that the stories that we're telling are really true reflections of who we are, whether it's intersectional, and so it's who we are as women or whomever the story is about. I want to be able to show ourselves back to ourselves so that we might have a little bit better understanding of who we are culturally, and that I think will be able to take many forms, but and I always like to do that in really subversive ways, so the whole goal is you don't hit people over the head. Instead, you have really interesting storytelling and really interesting characters, and while you're at it, people are going to say, oh yeah, I so better understand now who I am or how I fit into the culture or what we are capable of doing, any of those things.
Yeah. So as a woman in entertainment, what would you say has been like your biggest challenge in the industry? And do you feel like you're at a place in your career now where you are empowered to make decisions that people don't like?
It's really hard as a woman to say something that people don't like. That's very difficult.
Yeah, people don't like us not like it.
And I still really struggle with sort of trying to be nice about it, make sure everybody's feeling okay, and maybe make a different, trying to suggest that we might try it a different way, but it's cool, you're cool, I'm cool, we're all cool, and ultimately having a concern that I'm going to be perceived as a bitch. And that's very real. And I actually have found now the more I'm getting into producing and the more sort of input that I have on a set, the more I really bump up against that. I mean, I know that that's something that I carry, that's something that's been passed down to me. But I also know that it is a cultural expectation that women are supposed to behave a certain way. And there's this sense that I always have to fight against of being presumptive. Like, who do you think you are? Sit down and shut up. That whole thing. Do you guys get that vibe sometimes?
Yeah. Who else feels like they don't want to be a bitch?
Who feels great about being a bitch? Yeah. See, I need to hang out with you a little bit more. Because I get, you can't help it. You want to make your point and you make your point, but then I'm like, I'm such a bitch!
You are.
The struggle,
in the best
I know.
way. All right, so let's talk about the roles you've chosen. The Friday Night Lights marriage was so unique because it showed two equals. And Tami Taylor was this exceptionally strong woman. And then you played Deborah in Dirty John, and she was quite the opposite. So why are you drawn to playing all these different types of women?
Well, for me, I just think it's really interesting. For me, I want to always explore who we are as women and my characters. And I think it's really interesting to walk in with the understanding that basically all women are ultimately trying to empower themselves, even if they don't know how to do it, even if they're fighting against certain confines of their lives or their understanding of themselves. And so, for instance, using the character Tami Taylor in Friday Night Lights, that was somebody she lives in a very conventional world. And by the way, a show and a world that was completely, focused on football in a very male-dominated world. And so for me, what was fun was in that environment, finding a way to see an empowered woman and to see where her power comes from. And I grew up in the South, and I grew up in a world similar to that. And what I loved and what I really wanted to honor with that character is watching the women that I grew up around, watching how creative they were with empowering themselves, using sense of humor and gracefulness and, kind of indirectness, but at the same time, really learning, okay, this is who I can be as a woman, and this is how I can find power in this man's world. And so that was really fun as Tami. And then for Dirty John, similar but different, because, and a lot of people are like, oh, she was not a strong character, she's a weak. I'm like, actually, no, she was an incredibly strong, by all of the indications of our culture, she was a self-made woman, very wealthy and successful, had raised children. It was just she had this one kind of tragic flaw. So to try to come to terms with all of those aspects of this one woman, because I recognized myself in that too.
So you use your platform for good in a really creative way. You take the things people are most interested about you in, and then you kind of flip it. An example is, I think you get asked about your hair all the time, and you did a commercial or like a video for the Ask Her More campaign where she revealed the shampoo she uses is feminism, and then she talked all about feminism, so you really duped people into learning about feminism. So I have to ask you one question. Do you still get asked about your hair? And for the record, I'm not asking about your hair, I'm asking about your hair.
Well, you have really great hair. I do still get asked about my hair.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, so with that, you use parts of your career to segue into shining light on social impact causes, and that's Connie from the basement. I feel like that was her dream.
But that's what we do as women.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think that we have to be so creative about how we get into the culture and we make an impact. And I think that we really have to know ourselves. The first and most important thing that I have found is that I have to know myself and be brave enough to understand as much of about what I have to offer as I can, and then use that to accomplish the things that we're trying to accomplish.
Okay. So recently, your most recent social impact cause was you went to the border. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I mean, I'm just, I'm just devastated and really losing a lot of sleep over what's going on and what the reports are at the border. And to be perfectly honest, when when this group came to me to talk about going to the border, I thought we were actually going to the detention centers in the border. What do I know? I was just like, going to the border? Yes, I'll go. And we actually didn't do that because you can't do that. You can't actually access, there's almost no transparency in terms of what's going on the American side. But what we did is we crossed over into Mexico, which was a surprisingly easy thing to do, and then we were able to see what the impact of our recent immigration policies has had on people who have traveled through multiple countries to try to gain asylum, and then they are basically left homeless in a country that's not theirs. And so we were visiting some of these populations and seeing the impact that way, which was really informative.
Okay. All right, so we're almost out of time here, so just two last questions here. What's next for you? Is there anything specific you can share with us?
Well, right now I'm really working on starting this production company, which I'm very excited about. And so it's really dreamy because I'm kind of trying to put together whatever my next TV thing is going to be, because I love working in television and I want it to really be sort of what I described today. So we're working on that. And then there are a couple of films that I've done recently that will be coming out eventually. I don't know. The movie Bombshell, I don't know if you guys have heard of that one yet, about Roger Ailes and the women at Fox who sort of overturned that situation, which is I have a very small part in, but I think it's going to be incredible. And then I just did a movie with Mark Wahlberg called, the working title is Good Joe Bell, and I'm hoping that's going to be coming out at the end of the year as well.
Awesome. All right, so is there any little tip you want to leave all these amazing women with about, what it's like to create great content, or some life hack?
I actually only want to say thank you, because to me, I do feel, I've never tried to impose a responsibility on anybody in terms of using your platform. For me, that's a very personal choice. But I am also very appreciative of those who are driven to do it and to create awareness. And I think you guys in particular have such a great opportunity and wide reach. And so anytime that people who have that are using their voice for the greater good, I'm very grateful.
Awesome. And finally, is there going to be a Friday Night Lights movie, or should I let it go?
You need to let it go.
It's fine. You guys, Connie Britton.